This episode is brought to you by Modal Electronics, who enable you to play and perform powerful sound with their incredible synthesizers. You can enjoy vibrant wavetable patches with the Argon 8 series, or you can produce with state-of-the-art analog-style synth textures with the Cobalt 8 series. To check out Modal Electronics' incredible array of synthesizers, go to modalelectronics.com. Modal Electronics. Dare to sound different.
Oh my God, yes. Being a kid, I was an 80s pop child, pop tart. I lived and breathed 80s. I mean, born in that era where I was born in the 60s, I'm 52 this year. But my musical era for me, musically, I was a kid. We had the top 40, we had Madonna, we had Adam and the Ants, we had Haircut 100, all those pop bands that you probably wouldn't even be familiar with because you weren't born. No, you would have been familiar with,
Oh,
but
I love. I'm more
yeah, you
70s
know
and
what I mean?
80s than any other era. Really,
And
it was
my
the
daughter,
best.
she's only 17. But what it is that I just lived and breathed music, and then going to school and having friends. I had a couple of my best friends, one of them was into Madness, another one was into Gary Newman. So that was my, like my youth growing up with all this different music. But then at home, my mum played soul. So as much as I love soul music, but my first love was pop music. So that's when I fell in love. Every Sunday, it was my day to wash up, and I was really happy that none of my brothers, because I'm one of four. I mean, I'm the oldest of four, and I've got three brothers. So I was happy that they weren't there on my day when I was washing up, because I could listen to the top 40 MP, loud as you could possibly have it in my kitchen. Doing the washing after the Sunday dinner, because it was my day. It was their days on. They do the washing on other days, but that was my day to enjoy my top 40. So yes, I remember as a kid just loving music way back then.
Yeah, the top 40. I mean, it is still obviously a huge deal to be
Yes, yeah,
in the top 40, but it used to be even bigger, I guess, before
yeah,
Spotify and stuff. It was like a
precisely,
ritual. Um,
exactly. And it was
so,
my
well, exactly. And so in the past, can you remember when you first started singing?
Oh my gosh, something. I remember being confident, singing confidently by about 12. And I say confidently, not thinking I had the best voice or anything, but just loving singing around the house, singing at school. I was about 12 or 13 when I wrote my first pop song. I say
Wow.
pop song because, and I was singing it to my manager. I won't even dare sing it to you today, but I was singing it to my manager. But it's really weird because when I was singing it, the melody in my head now is the music to Candy Girl. I forgot the soul band. They were like a soulful boy band back in the day. But no, wouldn't that be oh, I forgot these names. Bobby Brown. Bobby
Probably
Brown.
around.
Yeah, they and but I was singing that and thinking, oh my God, from a young age, music was like my salvation in a sense. I didn't know what salvation was at those, but it's just my thing of loving life, loving music, being that kid that was watching Fame by a certain age, and it was like it was a show, it was a musical show. It was about kids being at college or music school and amazing characters. So I feel for me, I've always kind of been part of something musical or been interested in something musical. You know what I mean? So from being that pop kid, from going to school and like I said, writing my first song at 12, 13. I don't know. I can't ever imagine my life without music. Maybe I would be too traumatized to even think that there could possibly be such a thing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And so, was there a point where you're like, I've got to do this professionally? When you started writing songs, were you already thinking, I want to be a star?
No, when I was writing songs at 13, I just, for me, it came about because I had a great English teacher. And, you go to school, they'd make you read poems, whether it's war poems, things by Keats, all these different things. And I listen, I think they're all amazing, but they don't represent my life. And the moment the teacher said, right, we're going to get you to write your own poems, that was it. My poems became my songs. And that's how it happened. And so to actually, I don't know, just to just do what I wanted to do. And so to write my own song at that young age, it's kind of crazy. And I look back and I think, I can't believe I did that, but it was, I don't know, that was my first introduction. But I didn't ever think I want to be this writer and I want to be famous and I want to be a star. It didn't come from that place at all. I just wanted to sing and I just wanted to be able to have something to sing when I wasn't singing all these great pop songs by people that I adored. So that's how it came about. The whole thing of becoming an artist later on, that would come much later. And it wasn't ever really something that I initially thought about ever being, because I didn't look like other people. I didn't think it was a reality. I didn't think it would ever be my reality. There were no women on TV who looked like me. You know, everybody was kind of physically perfect, and well, in my eyes, and they had two eyes that they had on show, and not a lazy eyelid. So again, that wasn't an aspiration because of my insecurities and the times we lived in. Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, you did pretty young, become a huge star with,
Yeah.
one of the best, one of the best songs of the 90s for sure. Just such a fantastic, for a first single, what an unbelievable first single Dreams was. And how did things go from that stage of loving music, but not having
Yeah.
kind of serious aspirations
Yes.
to there?
Okay, so I always loved music, and when I got to maybe my late teenage years, I had a cousin who was, she, no, she, I had a cousin who had a boyfriend who did modeling, and the modeling he would do at a nightclub in central London. And one day I went along and with my cousin and her boyfriend, and it just so happened that they needed entertainment. They were looking for singers, and my cousin who I'd grown up with, she was like, oh, come on, you can do this, And I was like, no, I can't. And before I knew it, I was speaking to the woman there. Her name was Lady Carol, who booked the entertainment. And my cousin was like, yeah, you can do it. Go on, go on, go. So I had no choice. And I wasn't that confident, but I was probably too scared to say, no, I don't want to do it. But there was a part of me that was intrigued. And by the time I was speaking to this lady called Lady Carol, she wasn't a real lady in the sense, she was a female. Yes, she was a lady, but I don't think she was really officially titled, but she was Lady Carol, and she looked like a fabulous lady anyway. So basically I got talking to her and she was like, what's your name? I told her my first name. What's your middle name, darling? I told her my middle name. She's like, Gabrielle, I think we'll go with that. And before I knew it, I was singing I was singing at a nightclub called Moonlighting in Greek Street, and that was my first taste of singing in front of an audience of people. And again, I would be surrounded by these physically perfect people, girls who looked amazing, had the most spectacular voices. And there was me with my lazy eyelid that I didn't cover. Now you see me having all these, ways to kind of cover up my lazy eyelid. And, I've been having fun with it over the years. But I felt so exposed, but so, how would I say, intimidated by, the type of singers, the way they looked. But there was still that part of me that rather than shying away, because I love singing, I just was happy to be a part of it all. And I was singing Luther Vandross songs. One of them was So Amazing, and the other one was
Oh,
Penny.
that's such a great song.
Yeah, I was having so much fun. And back in those days, it wasn't a backing track, it was the actual record, and so you flip it over, the B-side with the instrumental, and that's what they would put on. And I would be singing to that. And I had so much fun that I was very content with, if that's what it was going to be, then so be it, because I was in my element. And, people would come and watch us. And I wasn't the only singer, there were other singers there. And I was just really happy to be a part of it. And I think it wasn't until later on when people started saying, I could do something for you, I could probably, I could help your career, that it started to, maybe the possibility became something that, I hadn't actually entertained. But what happened is that people kept making promises, probably just to get me to stay singing at that club. And over a period of time, I think I became disheartened because nothing was happening. Everybody saying, we could take you to a studio, we can get you to do this. Yeah, but please come and sing for us. And I'd sing, but nothing was happening. I stopped singing at that club for a while. And I can honestly say that when I wrote Dreams, that was as a result of, it was a response to, how I felt at the time. The opening lines of Move a Step Closer, that I want you. For anybody who hears that song, I think it's this amazing love song. And I wrote it, so I think it's a lovely song. But actually, that was me talking about my dreams. Every time I felt that somebody had made a promise and then it got dashed on the floor, because every time I felt I was moving a step closer to possibly doing something that I'd always loved, which was, having this career in music. I didn't understand, or I didn't actually envisage anything huge, but just something. And I felt every time I made a step closer, it would become further out of my reach. That's song I'd write later, but you know what I mean? So that's how it all came about. And so Dreams ended up being a poem in my book about, the way I was feeling at the time. And it would stay there for a little while before, it would be unleashed as this Dreams, the single with Tracy Chapman's, Fast Car being an association, because of, that's another story in itself. But that's how it all kind of kicked off. So when I think of how I first started and where I am now, maybe 30 years later, in fact, Dreams is 30 years old, because I recorded that and it went out on the white label and was playing on Kiss Radio in 91. You know what I mean? Before I ever had an official signing, which was 92, and then the release in 93. So
all right, so it was playing a lot on the radio and stuff for a couple of years before then.
yeah,
Because people now write the history books as if it came out in 93.
yeah. So it was on a white label, and I went through so many things with that song, because it was a song that when I'd written it, the producers fell out. And then one of the producers went off and decided that he could probably try and put it out without me. And I remember saying, that's not fair, And then when I actually ended up speaking to a lawyer had said to me at the time, why don't you just forget about Dreams? You're young, you can write other songs. But I was adamant that I was not about to get my first. Yeah, that nearly happened. In fact, it really happened. But the idea that advice really happened, and if I'd been someone else, then it could have happened. That we could have, Dreams would have just been something that nobody ever really got to hear.
Did you know it was a fantastic record? Like once you recorded it, did you think, okay, there's no way that is not going to become a hit, and I'm going to fight for it?
Do you know something? I just knew that I loved the song. In terms of where it could reach in my lifetime, or what could happen, that I would be able to watch over and be like 3 decades in and be like, oh my God, I never saw that coming. I actually never saw it coming. I just knew that I wanted to fight for it because it was a song I'd written. It was a song I loved. And at that time, I didn't care about what would happen to it. I just knew that I didn't want to just forget about it. It was my song. I had no idea of what would become. And I'm glad that I was feisty enough that I didn't listen to the lawyer, sacked him. I saw him years later, but I won't mention his name because that was bad advice.
Very bad advice.
No, very bad advice. But I like to think that as much as there were times I was insecure growing up, there was always certain decisions I made that I'm really pleased that I stuck to. And how did I know these things? It's a gut instinct. I don't believe in all this, but maybe something was guiding me, and the fact that I can be here like 30 years later kind of talking about it. And I'll always say that, but I would always say that Dreams is like my first real love affair, with this song, it's my musical thing that, I don't know, it'll always be my baby, and something that I know people get to this time in their lives where they're like, oh, I don't want to sing the song that launched me. Hell no, I'm loving the song that launched me. 30 years later, I'm still loving it. And I'm loving the love that it gets whenever I perform it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really great to hear, because I was gonna ask that, because, of course, that song is larger than life, like so successful, multi-platinum, all the rest of it. But you had so many hit singles, and have had consistently, like, it's a bit like all big artists have a couple of songs that are just the tip of the iceberg, but in your case, whether it's Going Nowhere, Because of You, Give Me a Little More Time, Forget About the World. There are so many hit singles that you had in the 90s. In the sense of when you were singing at the club and you were getting made all these promises, you wrote Dreams. It seems that obviously you were displaying this great vocal talent, but you also have this incredible talent as a songwriter. Was that the reason that you kind of wanted to press on and leave the club and stop singing? And is that what gave you the faith? Because you probably could have made it with other people writing your own songs.
Something. I mean, you say that, but when I was writing, I didn't ever view myself as this amazing writer. I mean, even to this day, I see and hear all these fabulous singer-songwriters, and I always get this thing of, I wish I'd written that song, or I wish I'd written that song. But but for me, I just love writing, and I think that's what it all boiled down to, the fact that I just wanted to write, and it wasn't a case of looking for validation in my writing, because I didn't know, but I just know that I had a lot of joy from it. I was one of those, probably, I don't know, maybe I was a bit of a loner as a kid. So, I was happy in my own company, listening to my music, fantasizing about, all these wonderful singer-songwriters, and imagining meeting, imagining that I'd be up there with them, meeting them and singing with them. But, it was one of those things, it was just my own fantasy. If you'd told the little Louisa Gabriella Bob that she would be making music, and have a career spanning 30 years, and the dreams that she felt she couldn't really tell people, because, I felt that I was being laughed at, because I was sometimes laughed at, I would have said, shut up, I don't believe you, stop messing with me. And to like, the idea of me writing and then to get awards for it, like, we fast forward from being that little girl to somebody that, with this, the first release of Dreams, and then my first Brit in 94, and then my second in 97, and the few awards I do have, I sit back and I'm like, wow, because I didn't really have faith in myself. I just knew that I loved singing. I didn't credit myself. And to have other people kind of validate what I have done. And I don't take things super seriously. I know I'm probably a bit nervous. I'm like, you can make trying to speak properly. But the reality was, I didn't take myself seriously. And even to this day, I love doing what I do. I love writing. I love when people hear a song and they tell me, oh, Gabrielle, this song has been the soundtrack to my life. But I was just writing about something I knew, which was, I was writing from my own perspective. I've been through so many things, as we all have. And I just had an outlet, which was my singing and my writing. So to be able to write about things I was experiencing, and it to be therapeutic, and then to share that with the world, I didn't see it as anything of greatness, you know what I mean? It was just like, it's what I do. It's like, when I'm sad, I eat, or I write a song. And so, it's really lovely to have all these amazing, lovely things said about me now, and my music, because like I said, I was, plagued with insecurities, but I just love doing what I did. And I'm glad that as insecure as I was, I never let it kind of distract me away from the point of making music. And although in the early days, when people were making promises, and I stopped singing for a bit, and that was just to kind of get my head together, and you know what I mean, just kind of step back and think, do I really want to endure this? Because this is like a nightmare. You've got people who come, disguised, wolves in sheep's clothing. So it was a very real thing that can put you off. And I'm glad that I was strong enough. And and I know that there's some people not strong enough, but I like to think that when people hear my story, it will encourage their strength to know that if you just hang on in there and believe in yourself and believe in what you do. And if you don't believe in what you do, who else is going to believe in it? So
Exactly.
I'm loving every minute, and just loving the music, and being thankful for people like yourself who kind of give me a bit of credit for what I've done over the years. So thank you.
No, I mean, there are so many people who would, and of course, in a podcast, in an interview, it's so difficult to cover everything, because people go into these little highlights, and I know that you put in so much into every song. So one thing I wanted to ask is, you had literally a string of every single single that you released charted, for decades.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
literally, because when I research this, I always look at the whole thing. And it was for like 20 years, every single charted. I mean, that is ridiculous. That must be that must be some kind of, nearly a record. I don't know. But the question is, why is there this misconception that Rise was in hindsight, that Rise was like a big comeback because you'd been having huge singles? Was it just because it was even bigger? And is that one of your favorite records?
You know what? It's funny, because Rise was a favorite. I think that, after I'd done the first album, we had the second, and then by the time Rise came along, it was almost as if I don't know whether people were still surprised that I was there, and then I'd come with, Rise being, we'd used the Bob Dylan's Knocking on Heaven's Door as a sample, so that piqued people's interest, and they were probably intrigued to see what I'd done, and how did I get the sample clearance? But I was having so much fun that, it was a case of, what, it just is what it is. And I had so much fun. We had all the attention, we had the success with that album. And is it one of my favorites? Yes, because I felt that it cemented, although I'd had an album prior to that, I always felt that sometimes people might have still viewed me as a one-hit wonder. And as much as I had Dreams, and then I had, other songs, but people would always like, oh, that Dreams is your biggest song. Well, to actually come with this album and it be huge, and it was an album that was huge, that the songs, people were just paying a lot of attention to me. And I felt like, I can actually say, I'm here, I've arrived. And it's crazy that it would take for that album for me to feel that sense of having arrived. But I guess, with the first one, people could think, is it a fluke? Let's see, she was an eye patch wearing kind of girl. Maybe it was a bit of a gimmick. Maybe it's worn off now. So it was nice that I was able to come with the Rise album and it be proved not to be a gimmick. And the fact that I was still writing these songs, and some co-writes, but it's very much my thing and my vibe. And it was, but in terms of, is it my best album? For me, it's one of my favorites. But actually, as the years have developed, I've had a few, and I've done an album. Oh my God, there's been ones that have almost sounded country, and then we get to 2018 where I delivered Under My Skin, which is almost like a return to to being a bit like Rise, but being a modern day version. But I didn't see it as a modern day version of Rise, but people were like, oh, you're not doing soulful songs anymore, we want more soulful songs, Gabrielle. But I felt that had that rebellious stage where I had songs where it was a bit country. You've got the Now and Always album, you've got, it's or should I say the Always album and things like that. And it was a case of Play to Win was more country for me. And I felt that people didn't necessarily like what I did there, but
it did really well.
No, I mean, I had fun with it, but I think people were confused because, they have me pigeonholed as this soul artist, but I feel like I'm a pop artist. And I've now had to kind of accept that some people always see me as soul, but, Dreams wasn't a soul song. Out of Reach isn't a song. Stop Right Now, the current song, is not a soul song. But I think maybe because I'm being a Black female, people don't know how to kind of where to put me. And I kind of struggled with, I loved doing this music because I was an 80s pop child, but I have influences where I was influenced by pop and rock. And so when I brought out my album Play to Win, I thought it, a bit of a country vibe, but there's just little vibes in there that I think people are like, what's she doing? But I never gave up. And and then every now and again, I'd come out with something that was kind of what people liked and what I enjoyed, but I'd still throw in something that was still me as well. So now we get to 2021 and I'm doing an album, which I think is crazy, because of the fact that it's got, Stop Right Now is still not a soul song, but then I've got an album of covers, which is soulful, but then I've got a Billie Eilish song and a Harry Styles song. So I'm like, take that, everyone.
Yeah, there's so much great stuff on this new album. It's called Do It Again, and I would recommend to all my listeners to check it out. What made you want to, I guess they're fantastic songs. You definitely chose the best song from the Harry Styles album. It's a bit, I prefer it to, no offense to Harry, but I do prefer this version.
I really appreciate you, but Harry's one is stunning. That's why I wanted to do it.
Of course, his version is great, but this is, you delivered such a great vocal and everything. And what an interesting thing to do, in the sense of, this album has Proud Mary and Teardrops and Killing Me Softly, all these classics, and then you've taken a couple of newer songs. Was there any kind of pushback for you doing that? Because it's quite a kind of risky thing to do. But
I really had that word in mind. It's really weird because this album, which was inspired by The Masked Singer, the idea of me doing those songs, doing all the contemporary songs and then putting Smile in there, and then aside from the songs that I did on The Masked Singer, to choose songs like like Proud Mary, like you say, Sam Cooke, Killing Me Softly. These are songs that I was very well aware that people could have been very mad at me for daring to think I could take these songs on. But when I chose to do them, these are songs that I loved. I used to sing Proud Mary years ago with my old band. And then Sam Cooke, I used to sing that in the shower. Yeah, people still sing in the shower. I do. And, completely. And, Teardrops, that was one of my favorite songs. I bought my mum the album, the Womack and Womack album. And
Mm.
that's a song that I sing with my band. That's one of the few covers I do on my stage. So I just felt it was the most natural thing for me to do the songs that I was familiar with and had history with and had a lot of fun with. And then, by doing them and not being afraid, it was a case of saying, I'll never be as great as these people, but I'm not trying to be them. I'm just trying to, pay homage to these songs and, to show how much I adore them and the artists behind them and just do it, have fun with it. And people are like, what do you mean have fun with these classics? Why not? Why not be able to have fun? And the fact that since I've released this album, it's only been a few days, I cannot believe the amazing response it's had. Because I was expecting pushback for like, how dare you, Gabrielle? I think you can sing these songs. No one said that. I've been
Of
waiting. I'm
course
still
not.
waiting.
Of course not, because they're great. They're great versions,
Thank
and interesting choices as well. There's a mix of classics, and then even
Yeah,
cover newer stuff. Used to happen a lot more, I think. When there
yeah,
was a hit of the day, you'd get a few different versions.
yes.
But that seems to happen less and less. Did presumably, obviously you're a fan of Billie Eilish.
Uh, and my daughter was the one. My daughter's 17, soon to be 18 this month. And she was the first person that introduced me to Billie Eilish. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this girl can sing. I love her vibe. And I started watching her YouTube videos. They're a bit scary, like her
Yeah.
videos on YouTube. I'm like, how, blood coming, it looks like blood coming out of the eyes. She's incredible. But, so I was really tough to sing that song. And Harry Styles, obviously we've known him from One Direction, and then his solo career, which has been phenomenal. I'm jealous of
Mm.
Liz. She got to sing with him, but I'm also jealous of him for getting to sing with her. So all these songs and these contemporary artists, I've totally just loved them, and it just felt right. And people are like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're singing a Billie Eilish song? Love her. And again, for me, that's to do with my pop side, the fact that I still see myself as a pop artist. And so to be able to sing these pop songs and to amaze people just because of the fact that I chose these songs, I'm really excited that people get to see that about me. And, so it's not predictable. It's not a predictable thing to do. And it's probably a crazy mashup of putting like Billie Eilish and Harry, and then you've got Sam Cooke, and put this all on one album. I don't think if you'd ever said it to people in the past, they probably would have been like, wrong, that would be a big mistake. And it's so proven not to be. So
Yeah,
I've
they're
just,
just fantastic songs.
thank you. I'm just having fun with them.
Even check the Jackson 5 song, I'll Be There's on there.
Yeah.
And of course, Fast Car at the end.
That's right. I've got to be honest, those two songs at the moment, because I'm constantly playing this album, I've just been amazed the fact that it is a covers album. I thought initially it was too soon for me to do a covers album. Then I had to step back and recognize I've been doing this for 30 years. I should at least have done one. So I'm really tough with it. But right now, as of like the last couple of days, Fast Car and I'll Be There of my album, my two favorites. I'll dare say I'll have new favorites, but those two, I've been playing them, I'm like, oh my God, I really love them. And and I've had people tweeting me saying, oh, they're loving these covers. And I'm like, no pushback, no pushback. I'm waiting, but it's still not there. And I'm just basking in the fact that I get to cover these amazing, beautiful songs. So yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Well, as I said, it's called Do It Again. Everybody
That's
check it
right.
out. I've got one final question for you, which is you've just appeared in The Masked Singer. What was that
Yes,
like?
it was incredible. I mean, it was one of those things. If somebody had said I'd be doing that, I would have said get lost. And then, went into lockdown, and there were no opportunities to actually go on stage and sing. And basically, when I was approached, I literally bit their hands off. And I thought, well, it's within my comfort zone. How hard could it be? It was hard, but I had so much fun, and I'm really proud to have taken part in it. I mean, it inspired this album. It's taken me to a whole different audience. And what an incredible show, family friendly. And I can't wait to see who they've got on next year, because I was addicted just like everyone else. It was, we filmed it in September, went out, you know, just after Christmas. And wow, I got to say, I was blown away by some of the people who were under the mask. I had no idea, because we don't get to know and we don't get to see anybody. So yeah, I was blown away. Hence, I can't wait for the next one.
But it's very good to see you on, you know, such great form with such a fantastic album, and hopefully, you know, the Rise Again tour's due to take place in November, right?
Oh yes, you know, it's not a case of if, it's not maybe, it's when. All the other words are swear words in my vocabulary. So yeah,
I agree.
when I'm on tour in November, I hope to see you there, and everyone just come along. We're going to have a lot of fun. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Gabrielle, thank you so much for coming on the Greatest Music of All Time podcast. It was an honor to speak to you, and congratulations on your brilliant new album.
Thank you, my darling. It was an honor to actually be here with you. So thank you.
If you're enjoying the Greatest Music of All Time podcast, you can keep up to date with all of our latest episodes for free by subscribing. If you're watching on YouTube, the subscribe button is located at the top of the Tom Cridland YouTube page. It's also at the bottom right of any video that you watch on YouTube. If you're listening on an audio platform, such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can subscribe at the top of the page.